In today's video, I am going to explain muscle anatomies that do anterior tilt of pelvis. Anterior tilt is you move pelvis this way. You kind of pelvis tuck in anteriorly in forward direction. This is anterior tilt. So I'm going to explain pelvic muscles, hip muscles first. Then actually back muscles also can do anterior tilt. I'm gonna explain that in second part, okay? So this is anterior view. As I said, anterior pelvic muscles, anterior hip muscles do anterior tilt. So let me explain them. First muscle is this one. This is rectus femoris. This is part of quadriceps. Quadriceps, there are four muscles: rectus femoris, vastus medialis, vastus intermedialis, and vastus lateralis. Only rectus femoris does anterior tilt. Why is that? Because this is the only quadriceps muscles that attaches to pelvis. That means this muscle can move pelvis. Other three muscles don't move pelvis because they attach to femur. That makes sense. So rectus femoris is very unique muscle among quadriceps. Okay? Rectus femoris does anterior tilt. Next muscle is this one. This is iliacus. Iliacus, that originates from pelvis. That makes sense. This muscle does anterior tilt. Wait a minute, how about psoas? Psoas unites with iliacus and it becomes iliopsoas. Doesn't psoas do anterior tilt? Not directly. What do I mean not directly? Psoas fuses with iliacus. So maybe contraction of psoas may do anterior tilt indirectly. If you think about origin of psoas, that attaches to lumbar spines. Psoas does not directly move pelvis because origin is lumbar spine. Psoas moves lumbar spine, but not for pelvis directly. Maybe via iliacus together, maybe it does anterior tilt, but it's not for anterior tilt. Iliacus is main anterior tilt between these two guys. Okay. Next one is this one. This is very thin, very long muscle. This is sartorius. Sartorius, that originates from ASIS, the most anterior part of pelvis. Of course, this muscle does anterior tilt. Let me explain one more muscle from this picture. That is this one. This is tensor fascia lata. Tensor fascia lata, that originates from anterior part and it goes to fascia of thigh. It's on anterior part. Of course, that does anterior tilt. Well, let me explain on the lateral part of hip muscle. Pelvis is right here. You know, there are arm muscles and hands in the lateral part, so it's a little bit hard to see. This is where pelvis is. And this is about where midline of anterior part and posterior part. So this is like a separation between anterior and posterior. Deep to, hand muscles, deep to this area, there are two glutes muscles that do anterior tilt. This blue dots and this pink dots. These blue dots indicate gluteus medius. And pink dots indicate gluteus minimus. These two muscles are kind of wide muscles. You can divide gluteus medius and minimus for two parts, anterior part and posterior part. Then, think about it, when anterior fibers contract, that brings pelvis to anterior tilt. Very, very interesting. Gluteus medius, gluteus minimus, anterior fiber. Whereas I explained many muscles, rectus femoris, iliacus, sartorius, tensor fascia lata, and gluteus medius, gluteus minimus. They do anterior tilt. And do you notice these guys can do one more main movement? That is for hip movement. Yep, these guys do hip flexion. Think about it. Rectus femoris, hip flexor. Iliacus, hip flexor. Tensor fascia lata, hip flexor. These muscles are also for hip flexor. Let me explain that. So, when these guys contract this way for forward way, that brings hip to flexion position. Of course, how about when these muscles contract this way? Now this vector of force brings pelvis to anterior way. This is anterior tilt. So anterior tilt muscles are also for hip flexions. They are hip flexors. It's very important to know. Okay, anterior part of pelvis hip muscles, they do pelvis, anterior tilt, and hip flexion. Very, very important. Now, let me talk about back muscles. Back muscles also do anterior tilt. Let's look at two muscles from this video. First one is this one. This is erector spinae. Erector spinae, particularly the fibers attaching to pelvis and sacrum, they do anterior tilt. How come? Back muscles' main function is trunk extension. Trunk extension is you bend trunk backward. That is trunk extension. How come back muscles do anterior tilt? Here is the thing. When back muscles contract this way, this vector of force brings core to extension. How about when back muscles contract this way, superior way? Then what's gonna do for sacrum and pelvis? This force brings pelvis this way. Oh my gosh, what is this movement? This is anterior tilt. Superior contraction, superior direction contraction brings pelvis sacrum this way. This is anterior tilt. Don't you think it's interesting? Then how about this one? This is multifidus. Multifidus also attaches to sacrum. That brings back extension. Same time, when multifidus contracts this way, that does bring pelvis and sacrum this direction. This is anterior tilt. Very interesting. So, anterior tilt muscles are on anterior part of hip and pelvis plus back part, that is above pelvis. If you go below the pelvis, back part, that is different story. Back part hip muscles do posterior tilt. That's different story. Anterior hip muscles below pelvis and posterior back muscles above pelvis and sacrum. These guys do anterior tilt. Don't it? It's very, very interesting. So if you know this anatomy, you can apply this information for training, yoga, Pilates, athletic performance. You know, pelvic movement is very, very important. I hope today's info helps for your career. If you liked today's video, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. See you next video.